Well, I'd love them to start putting in the foods that feel so good. And if there's one nutrient that I would love people to get more of, it is omega-3. So omega-3 fatty acids are incredible. And what's interesting is in our modern food, when we look and analyze people's menus, most people have 20 times the amount of omega-6 to omega-3. And that omega-6, unfortunately, could potentiate something called arachidonic acid, which is causing a cascade of inflammation, where omega-3 shuts down inflammation.
So one of the women I absolutely admire the most in the world, and especially in the world of nutrition, is our next guest, the lovely, the brilliant, the kind, the beautiful Julie Daniluk. She's been on the show before, Julie. You have been here when we talked about your last book, Becoming Sugar-Free, but I will have you back anytime, because if you don't know my history with Julie, before I was on my own, I was a part of Julie Daniluk's team. So when I first got introduced into this world of nutrition, I was still working in television at the time. She hired me to be her videographer. I was actually in nutrition school. So I like to say Julie was my teacher, because I was doing a distance ed. I didn't know how to say half the words in the nutrition books, but I would go to Julie's and be like, how do I say this word? So Julie was not only an incredible friend, but such a beautiful teacher and mentor. And I have learned so much from you over the years, Julie. And I know all of our clients listening, our audience listening, will hear such similar verbiage between what you say and what I say, because so much of my own teachings is rooted in inflammation, in anti-inflammatory. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Oh my goodness. Well, Katie, Chris, I'm so honored to be here. And just to see how your amazing career has blossomed and you guys have grown together into this gorgeous work that you do. And it's so important, right? Like it fills us with such joy to bring wellness to people. So thank you so much. Rising Tides really does raise all boats. So thank goodness we're all doing this together.
You've always said that, and that's one of the quotes that have always stuck in my mind. And you've just been such an incredible support system, even for me over the years. As you know, I've gone out on my own and done all these things. It's just been so nice to have you and Alan and your sister Lynn in my corner all the time. And I was so excited to hear that you revamped your original best-selling book, Meals That Heal Inflammation. I got so ahead of her intro, I forgot to say, of course, Julie Daniluk is an incredible registered holistic nutritionist. This is what she does for a living. A talk show. Are you also the host of The Healthy Gourmet on the OWN network? Best-selling author as well. Incredible speaker. If you've ever seen Julie speak, you know how wonderful she is. But you redid Meals That Heal Inflammation, which I think is such a powerful book. And the fact that you got to redo it almost 13 years later, because it was from 2011, right?
Yes. Yeah, I was so honored to be able to redo it because let's face it, nutrition is one of the youngest sciences out there, and we are accelerating our understanding of it at quantum speed. So we really did need to redo this book and update recipes, drop ingredients, bring into light the newest research. And that's why I can't wait to share today.
I know Chris and I were both really excited, right? Like Chris and I, we love our nutrition books. We love our cookbooks. And when I was like, listen, Chris, guess who's coming back on the show? She was like, OMG, I'm so excited. Because Chris, we talk about inflammation every day, all day.
Yeah.
Yep. I love Julie's energy. Like, come on, it's so infectious. Look at that. I'm like, who wants to dance now? I do, right?
Thanks, guys. This is so wonderful. And I just love to watch all of your posts. You guys are helping so many people heal and giving them so much self-confidence. And what's interesting is underneath all skin conditions is often inflammation. So I just love that we're going to bring this conversation to light today.
Yeah, so
Yay.
It's no surprise that Chris and I talk about inflammation all of the time. So Julie, I would love for you to just let people know, maybe they aren't as familiar with it, they need a refresher. What really is inflammation?
Sure. So inflammation is the body's emergency healing response system. So consider it like the dash light on your car. Different things come up to say, yo, you've got some underlying issues here that you need to address. So instead of blaming ourselves for the one symptom at hand, we should dive underneath that and look at the deeper causes of inflammation. And when we solve those, and thank goodness nutrition can solve so many of them, then we have true resolution of the root cause. And I hear you guys talk about this all the time. Like, for example, that healing starts in the gut. I love that. So we're going to delve into that today for sure.
Yeah, really, when you look at it, so many diseases all go right back to inflammation in the body. It's at the root of so many issues, whether it's your skin, it's joint pain. It's incredible to see what happens in the body when that inflammation isn't kept at bay.
You got it. 100%. So isn't that empowering to know, oh, we just have to squash the inflammation and then we see symptom resolution? Because that's what everyone wants, right? They want clear, beautiful skin. Well, okay, let's get underneath that. There's so many root causes and they're actually easy to solve with lifestyle and nutrition, as you guys coach all the time.
So of course, being here at the Clear Skin Solution, Chris and I are doing skin day in and day out, but all of our clients that come in, Chris, they're not just dealing with skin issues. It's never just skin. So Chris, why don't you share some of the big symptoms we see our clients dealing with? And then Julie, you can fill in some additional symptoms that are inflammation related.
Sure.
How much time do I have?
Yeah, right.
Like this list is vague. This list in 100% transparency is unlimited. And what we see, fatigue, lack of energy. We're going to see bowel inconsistency. We're going to see aches and pains in joint. We're going to see edema or even swelling of, that swelling or bloating. Hello, no lady in life likes bloating, let's be honest, right? Hoarse voice, itchy bum, right? Yeast infections, fungal on the toenails. We could have dandruff. Like the list goes on. And what I say is it's unlimited is because the magnitude of clients that come into the Clear Skin Solution, no one has the identical. We might have similar, repetitive, but if I had to put my top couple, fatigue, energy, 100%, and bowel inconsistency on top of all of the other beauties around the skin.
Right? Absolutely, right? The whether it's blemishes or whether it's rashes, eczema type stuff, it's so interesting that whether we're dealing with any sort of skin condition, the 5 cardinal symptoms of inflammation are often present. So we're dealing with redness, heat, swelling, pain, or loss of function, as we see with loss of energy, loss of function, loss of joint mobility. So that's where we get those 5 classic symptoms. So look for those. Are you dealing with redness in your skin? Are you dealing with any sort of heat? Like literally sometimes you can feel that there's heat coming off of it. Are you dealing with an unfortunate amount of swelling? And that's where we often see a lot of belly swelling. Isn't that interesting that, when our food is cleared out of us, we might have a few hours of that nice flat tummy. And then the second we put food in the mix, and if you're reacting an inflammatory response to any of those food items, boom, the bloating just comes up, right? Or maybe you're experiencing a lot of gas or a lot of burping. That can be definitely tied to inflammation on the bowel lining. So, wow, we got so much to dive into, but at least we've got those 5 cardinal symptoms all covered off. So important.
I was going to say, I really like how you add the 5th because a typical search is going to put the 4.
Yes.
And those are the tangibles, right? You go to Emerge, they're not putting the loss of mobility under inflammation.
Yeah.
They're putting it under diagnoses, right? So I really love that 5th. That is a key point for everybody to take home. It's not 4, there are 5 for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really like that you gave bloating as an example because I think in our society, especially with social media, we've normalized bloating where it's like, oh no, it's normal to be bloated. It's normal to look like that. Like I cannot count how many TikTok and Instagram influencers I've seen being like, we need to normalize the bloat. I think what we need to normalize is, maybe not judging ourselves for it, but we don't want to be normalizing the bloat because it is a sign of inflammation. It's common to feel bloated. It's common to have these symptoms. Just because it's common doesn't mean it's normal for the body to function that way. So I think when we try to normalize these symptoms, we're trying to tell each other that, oh, there's nothing wrong here. You just look the other way, when in fact it is a road flare from the body. Like, hey, something is off in here.
Yeah. And it's so easy to get to the root cause. Like we really can dig in and find out one of the 4 root causes and move to a place of actually resolving it. And wouldn't you feel great if you could wear the same pant size in the morning and in the evening instead of
What a plus.
undoing your pants.
Changing to a different outfit, or
Yeah, exactly.
undoing the button at the holiday table.
Yes.
So when we're looking at those 4 causes of inflammation, let's list those out.
Oh, absolutely. So number 1 is infection. And we see that all the time with skin. We see when you actually have a pimple, it's an infection of your skin. Your sebaceous gland has become infected. And we need to really look at why is our skin microbiome thrown off and we're not able to battle back that infection. Or maybe it's coming from more of a root cause in the belly, where maybe you have a small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, or maybe you have a small intestinal fungal overgrowth in the way of yeast. And if you have that overgrowing, you're going to throw off your skin microbiome. You're going to throw off your hormonal balance, causing you to have more tendency to skin inflammation and certainly acne. So I know that that's a real key thing to look at. So we've got infections. Now we have to move on to the second big one, which is injury. So with injury, it can happen anywhere. But a lot of people end up picking, and having a lot of facial inflammation caused by the temptation to squeeze. And then when we're looking internally, we can certainly see how many people have injury that's starting to sort of overarch, cause inflammation to cascade through the whole body. So I know you and I have had actual physical injuries. I'd love to hear if Chris has had any, but like falling out of a truck, in my case, getting hit from behind, having these major things that throw us into an inflammatory state. Then we treat that inflammation, unfortunately, with painkillers that might further throw off our microbiome, further causing more skin problems. So obviously injury is a big one. Now, up next is a big area that you guys focus on, which is irritations from the toxins coming in from our food supply, and also irritations from our food intolerances and food allergies. So our food allergies and irritations, they truly cause that reaction on the intestinal lining. And that's going to create a domino effect that directly affects your skin and your joints. So if you're having phantom joint pain in your 30s, if you're having these strange headaches out of nowhere, if you're having a lot of skin inflammation, do we need to actually look at a food journal and get to the root of what is irritating you? Because I believe there's 8 billion diets for 8 billion people on the planet. So we need to absolutely focus in on your personal live it. I like to call it a live it instead of a diet. Let's focus in on creating something dynamic that you can live with so you don't feel like you're in food prison. And that's what I absolutely love about your practice, guys. You are always giving people substitutions and options, so we never feel like we're in food prison. Because the second we feel like we're in food prison, i.e. the latest diet, we can't wait to break out. The average person lasts less than 21 days. So obviously lots of good stuff in there. And we've got a fourth one, because I know, like, wow, Julie, there's a lot going on there. Imbalance. And you are the queen bees at this. We got to deal with our actual hormonal imbalances. We got to go upstream of that and look at nutritional imbalances. Do you have too many carbohydrates spiking your insulin, which is throwing off your unfortunate estrogen? Are you actually dealing with, higher testosterone, and PCOS is at the root cause? And that's all to do, if we go back upstream of the imbalance of our hormones, we can almost always see an imbalance nutritionally. Do you actually have an inadequacy of vitamin B6? That's one of the key pins to make sure your skin stays beautiful. Do you have a lack of zinc? Those 2 critical nutrients play such a role in healthy skin, but it's often absolutely depleted because of the drugs that we're on. Like, I don't know about you, but man, taking birth control pills for as long as I did totally threw my hormones off. But if I look upstream, was it the fact that my zinc and my B6 was terribly depleted? So there you go. Huge overarching 4 causes of inflammation that we want to get to.
Yeah, and I think it's so important to know all of them, right? Because you don't realize that inflammation has so many different causes. And we see this all the time, Chris, is infection is so rampant in acne sufferers, whether it's the candida, it's the SIBO, they have a different type of bacterial overgrowth, but people don't realize the connection that, you can still have an infection in your gut that shows up on your skin.
Yes, 100%. I just wish everyone had the opportunity. I think the doctors of the future will look this way because we now understand that the microbiome is responsible for whether we're happy or anxious, whether we're dealing with mood imbalances, whether we're dealing with skin issues. Let's look to the gut every time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when we have that injury or irritation even to the microbiome on our skin, that's going to be throwing off our skin barrier function. It's going to be throwing off the pH levels of our skin. So you can see how it's never just one, for acne sufferers, it's never just one thing causing their acne. It's a multifaceted, multi-layered approach that you need to consider of what's the internal infections. Is there topical injury? Is there this going on? And it's so important to kind of look at it from that, more bird's eye view.
Absolutely. You got it.
I love Albert Einstein. I still think he's more advanced than 99% of the population, right? And how long he's been dead. But when I look at one of the quotes, and it's like, we cannot change our circumstances with the same thinking we used to create them. That's inflammation in a quote. So as clients go through the journey, because they're like, how much longer? What's going on? Right? I always think, okay, well, where's the opportunity to look at the inflammation, the 4, the 5, do we have pain? Is there redness? Do we have cystic? Is it angry and red? Right? So there's a lot going on. However, I also just want to tie this all in is everything that you say, everything that Katie says, and myself, we all look at lifestyle changes. So anti-inflammatory or reducing the inflammation is for your longevity. It's for the quality, for the vitality. You want energy, you need vitality. You want libido, you need vitality. If you're already dragging yourself through your day, please do not expect that you are going to have a healthy sex relationship, right? Because things get pulled. So if you don't want to be pulled in all these different directions, we have to look at the circumstances, alter the mindset and the thinking, and revamp what created them.
And so many people think that they don't have willpower, like they were born without willpower. And I'm like, what if we actually reverse engineer this and see the fact that your willpower will show up when your vitality is higher? Your willpower will show up when you have a better mental capacity to cope with stress, or when you aren't fighting anxiety every minute of the day because you've infused your gut lining with enough good bacteria to take up the parking spots and you're making enough dopamine and enough serotonin, then maybe your willpower would just organically show up. Because one thing that I really thought, because I used to have a severe overeating issue. I used to seriously plow back 3,000, 4,000 calories at a sitting. And I was like, what happened that I was just able to one day put the food down and say, I'm going to eat to heal, not eat to just change my mood in the moment. And it truly was putting in enough of the good stuff that one day I just didn't have a craving for the bad stuff, because your microbiome is ordering dinner for you. There's latest science just coming out that I can't believe that your yeast in your gut is literally looking up saying, yo, via the vagus nerve, it's sending communications to the brain saying, I need more refined, ultra processed foods. Send those down. They feel so good for the yeast, right? So if we can go, okay, it's not my fault, and take the guilt off, because guilt is one of the greatest crushers of our motivation. And I've really noticed that as an eating psychology coach, we got to double down on just, okay, until I'm ready, I'm going to put the good in. And I love that you guys really focus on having enough treats. Like I look at your social feeds and I'm like, gosh, that looks delicious. Like you guys always make sure to give whole food treats so we can have treat every day instead of a cheat day. Like, why have a cheat day? That means we're in a box for the other 6 days.
Yeah. And I think this is something I learned from you very early on, is because you always taught me that it isn't about deprivation. And as long as we have something, an healthy alternative to put in place of that, favorite comfort food, we won't feel that deprivation. And of course, in the beginning, it's going to be a little bit of a switch going from like a regular mac and cheese to say like a plant-based mac and cheese or whatever, but at least you're still getting that experience and that comfort of sitting down and having that favorite food. So I love that, when you are able to include those healthy treats, it doesn't seem like, I don't get to have anymore.
Exactly. And Katie, don't you find that our taste buds actually adapt? Like you're living proof that your taste buds
Oh yeah,
adapt.
for sure.
Right?
100%. Like I used to think salad was disgusting. I didn't drink water. I wouldn't eat a vegetable. I only ate refined carbohydrates. So I almost need to have like my mom come on the show one day and be like,
Yes.
listen, you don't understand what it used to be like over here.
That is so fun.
I just wanted to bring up something really quickly because, again, clients ask, when does it get easier? Or why is this so hard? It's not that it does get easier. We become stronger through our taste buds, through our habits, through the synergies, through the frequencies. And when we look at frequencies as well, I really love that you brought up guilt, because this harbors with acne. Guilt is just like I'll take 2 servings, please. If we want a frequency really, really high, they say it's anywhere at like 1,000. The frequency is 1,000 as an example, right? Guilt is like 30. Your frequency is 30. So you draw 30. You draw really low power. So you can't, emit anything past that. So try and plug your freezer into a 1960 outlet and you're trying to output more, right? It just doesn't happen like that. The other thing with guilt comes blame, and then the view on life is evil. Like things are out to get me. Why is this happening to me? These things. And the more I delve into stuff like this, because again, transparent almost, is when you're working with clients, you have to have next level things, right? As a nutritionist, you rewrote your book, you had next level things. We're constantly evolving in this nutrition world. And as I delve into this more and more and more, guilt, blame, the evil, the hopelessness, the despair, the fright, all of these things come together. And now I take their symptoms and I'm starting to look at the actual emotions attached, throwing it to the body systems and putting it on a frequency chart in my head to say, yeah. So that they can start connecting these frequencies to say, okay, oh my gosh, you did what? You drank your water? Oh my gosh, how do you feel? I feel so great. Okay, did you see that frequency? Yes. When you ate the chocolate bar, how'd you feel? You weren't at that frequency? Let's get back to the frequency. Once you start feeling the frequency, and isn't it fair to say higher frequencies, lower inflammation?
I love that. I absolutely agree wholeheartedly. And I've truly started to focus in on the cause of people emotionally eating junk food is just to change their state. They're just trying to change their state. And let's face it, as we grew up, that's the best tool we had. And it was just a maladaptive form of coping. So instead of beating ourselves up, that saved us. Man, we're not alcoholics. Like congratulations. Like you did good just choosing food, right? But the sad thing is, alcoholics stop drinking, drug addicts stop actually doing drugs, or gambling addicts stop gambling. We can't stop eating. So therefore we have to be so self-compassionate to the fact that this has been a really big way that we coped for forever. And instead of saying, I'm wrong, I'm bad, it's like, okay, I'm just going to upgrade my coping mechanism. And when I fell in love with yoga, when I fell in love with breathing practices, when I fell in love with cold plunging, when I fell in love with all these cool new things that are at our fingertips, then I just found the food addictions dropped away without forcing it. Because when we force things is when it doesn't last long. We're just going to rebound because we want it to go back to the way it was. But if it gently falls away and we kind of emerge out of the cocoon organically, oh gosh, it feels so authentic and good. So thank you for creating so many awesome opportunities for people to grow into a new way of being instead of saying, you must force stop. That's great. I love what you're doing.
But I think it's so beautiful that, when you remind people, it doesn't have to be, tomorrow you're waking up and you're going to remove all of these foods and you're going to eat all these vegetables and drink perfect water and all of these things. It's so unsustainable. And I think that's something that, again, another thing you really taught me, Julie, was that you have to create it, like you call it, is a live it. It has to be part of your day to day. And it's not like we're forcing you by the weekend to go and give up all of your favorite things. And when you make many small steps, it's one massive leap in the end. And it's about taking those things, or the easiest things to you. And if it's like, okay, this week I'm going to try one new vegetable, or this week I'm going to try drinking one more cup of water. It's those small little steps that you take that get you to that bigger goal. And it doesn't matter if it takes you months or it takes you a few years. It just matters that you keep making those small little steps.
I love that. Can we let go of the resolution? Because it's been proven that it only lasts a few weeks. Here we are at the beginning of the new year when this first airs, and I've been really starting to toy with this idea of revolution and evolving instead of it being resolution. Like resolution's like, oh, I'm going to change. And then when we fail, we're like, oh, I'm just not good at this. Where if we're evolving, then we're allowing ourselves grace, which I love.
Yeah, I think that's and that's true, is every year you evolve as an individual, as a human being. And it's a much, softer approach, being like, okay, you have to make this resolution, you have to do it. And the resolution just seems so hard and like in your face, aggressive. But I love that it's an evolution.
Yeah, absolutely.
So many good little tidbits today. Now, what I'm most excited for is, when we were first chatting about, what are the big differences? Because I've read all of your books cover to cover. I know them all. I can probably recite every recipe and every book on what page they're on. And when I was like, hey, Julie, like, what did we revamp in the second edition of Meals That Heal? Because I've always said that this should be like required reading for nutritionists, because it's such a well thought out book with so much science backing it. I know you're really big on having the studies there to prove the information in the book. So when you shared there's an entire testing section, I was like, ding, 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 yay.
Absolutely.
So
and I just want to mention how excited I am that you can get this testing done within your programs as upgrades. Like that's so cool that you guys offer some of these things. So let's take them through some of the options, right?
Yeah, because I think one of the things we hear most is, I got my blood work done at my doctor's office, but everything came back normal. So I don't think there's any root cause going on to my skin or my health issues. That's probably the most common, or some verbiage of that I hear. So let's dig into each one of these. And then when we get to the blood section, we can talk about, well, why does the blood labs come back normal? And what should be the things that we're looking out for?
Sure. So we want to start, but with our blood labs, it's probably the fact that doctors are not really testing everything, right? Like they often want to go very low with the number of tests. Like, for example, you guys really focus on a thyroid panel because thyroid is so tied to skin that, for example, somebody might just test their TSH, their thyroid stimulating hormone. And if that comes back within range, they're like, you're fine. But hold on, if we go deeper, we might notice that your actual active form of your T3 is off, or maybe you have an antibody. Your actual thyroid antibodies are higher, meaning that you have Hashimoto's, where your thyroid is being attacked by an antibody, and that could be completely remedied by the elimination of a few proteins in our diet, which is really exciting that there's something that we can quickly do to see those numbers come down. And in my own practice, we've noticed we've had people completely go into remission with their Hashimoto's. So a lot of people see Hashimoto's as like a lifetime branding, like you just have your thyroid being destroyed. And it's not the truth. You can put that in remission quite easily. So just want to say, could we broaden out the blood tests and ask for more than we normally get? Like, for example, very few people have their insulin checked beyond their blood sugar. Like, it's just becoming normal to get your hemoglobin A1C tested versus just a fasting glucose. And your HbA1c is critical for skin, because if we're seeing your long-term blood sugar going above 6, then we know, oh my gosh, your blood sugar is out of control so consistently, and that could be really impacting your skin. So I really love to run that for sure. And then your metabolic panel, like could we actually look at your liver enzymes as well? Because if your liver, we know that liver and skin is like completely married. And if any of your thyroid if any of the liver enzymes are high, it means that there's been a little bit of liver damage and those enzymes can spill into the blood. So high enzymes, it sounds like it's confusing, right? Because enzymes high in the digestive system, great. Enzymes high in the liver, it means that there's actually been liver damage and those enzymes are spilling into blood. And that can be a real sign that we're dealing with some liver inflammation that we want to quell to help our skin. So that's a really popular one. And then the other one that I run all the time is a C-reactive protein test. The CRP test is something that gives us a snapshot, whether you're dealing with infections, whether you're dealing with chronic inflammation. We see this very, very high number if you have joint pain. So we want to run that CRP highly sensitive. I really love that test. And then the other one is called the erythrocyte sedimentation rate, or ESR. And I just want to take an opportunity to plug the great case series report that I did with 2 medical doctors and a naturopathic doctor. We developed an opportunity to flush out the anti-inflammatory nutritional protocol, run it seriously on people for 6 months, and showed that we could reduce both ESR and CRP by 50% in 6 months. So when people are like, oh, I don't know if this food thing works. No, we have hard data showing before and afters, and people having their inflammation markers just plummet. And then we also saw that reflect in their pain scores, reflect in their mood, reflect in their ability to cope. Like, it was so beautiful to see their symptoms falling along with these markers of inflammation falling. So that was really neat. And then, of course, we want to get into, I think a big one being beyond standard blood tests. Let's talk about our stool tests. So you can have a comprehensive stool analysis. In our world, we often order something called a GI map test, which allows you to actually have all of your microbiome genetic material mapped so that we can see what is your microbiome snapshot. What people don't realize is one course of antibiotics can be like a nuclear bomb going off in the bowel. And when you kill off all those good guys, you actually have an opportunity to put the good guys back in. And if we don't put the good guys back in, if we don't feed them with lots of sauerkraut and coconut yogurt and things that feel good in your system, then we leave those parking spaces that are really empty right now to fill up with yeast. And when we have that overgrowth of yeast, we see it directly in the skin. And that's what's really a problem with a lot of the prescriptions for skin is your doctor will often default to a long-term antibiotic. But coming off of that, we can end up having a huge flush of symptoms reoccur because our body's grown such accustomed to that nuclear blast so consistently, right? And then I will tie it up because I want to give you guys the floor. I just want to say urine can be really helpful too. So an organic acids test is so interesting, and we can garner so much information on inflammation by looking to what's our status of vitamin Bs, what's happening with the actual metabolites of our microbiome, and actually having genetic metabolic disorders checked for as well. So there's so much in there, not to mention another urine test that so many ladies find in your age group. So if you're really looking mid-20s to mid-40s, that 20-year span, every lady should be getting a Dutch test, which is a dried urine analysis. Because wow, I don't care on a blood test what your estrogen levels are. I care, how do you metabolize that estrogen? What pathway does it go down? Are you a good estrogen metabolizer? Because if you're not, are you a really good fit for using actual hormone replacement therapy? Or in the case of birth control, are you able to handle that birth control? So all of this is like incredible to have it presented so clearly. So all that information is in there. You can see I'm pretty passionate about sharing.
And you couldn't see Chris, and well, people watching on YouTube couldn't see Chris and I, but we're sitting here nodding along like, yep, 1,000%. Keep going, because we love all of this. And, I think I want to go back, Chris, do we want to go back to each individual, like the blood, the
Sure.
urine? Because there's so much that we can dig into on this.
Yeah.
And then because one that we run for every client that comes in the Clear Skin solution is our hair trace mineral analysis.
Yes.
And it's such I find, Chris, as well, I know we're preaching to the choir here to you too, but it's such a powerful test to be able to see what are those mineral levels in the body, what are the mineral levels in relation to each other, where are those, healing opportunities within, is there too much acidity? Is there yeast interference, low stomach acid? So I think when we start to really, embrace functional testing and using blood labs within the right ranges and the optimum ranges, they can be such a powerful tool in our health and can truly be a make or break difference, especially for those people that are like, I've been dealing with these issues for 20 years. I have, I feel like crap every day. I've tried everything under the sun. Anytime someone tells me I've tried everything under the sun, I say, have you done functional testing? That's where we got to start, right? Like, Chris, when we go all the way back to the blood, I know you were like, oh my God, Julie, yes to all of those things you're saying.
It's usually an uphill battle to get past the TSH because you're going to be told. And I'm going to give a prime example of what happened with a client.
Mm-hmm.
When we always ask for pictures, because I like to see the quality of the skin, not the acne. I want to see the quality of the skin. I want to see the inflammation in the eyes. You have inflammation markers in your eyes, right? And around your skin. I want to see the inflammation is what I'm looking for. I want to see the histamine reactions. That all lives on your face. I mean, it could tongue and eyes and other places. So we always ask for this. And I was like, okay, something's going on with this thyroid. When's the last time you had it tested and these things? And we went through all the plans and the skin was healing nicely, but then would almost be like, boom, a big flare. And it'd be like just rocked out. I'm like, okay, what happened? So of course we isolate it from the supplements to the inconsistency, stress being a massive, massive one, right? We do all these things. I'm to the point where I'm like, okay, I need the test now. Right? Okay, listen. Your body now is not having a natural response because your body, when it's going through inflammation, has learned lessons, right? Just like we learn to tie our shoes. We probably put our same sock on when we get up during the day, right? That's just what we do. So your body has learned lessons. You will repeat some inflammatory cycles, but you shouldn't have really cyclical cycles. It doesn't mean it's just hormonal. It means there's something going on in the body. And lo and behold, she had her TSH. It was normal. Free T3, free all in range. Went back again. I said, no. Like, I really need you to push these other tests. She did, full on Hashi. So, and please, this is what I need everyone to hear. Hashimoto's is an autoimmune. This is not a thyroid specific condition. It is a disease. So they delineate that in your head. So yes, we want to know the quality of the thyroid, TSH, free T3, free T4. We need it. Absolutely, 100% to see the quality, the functioning. Because her thyroid is functioning, she has an autoimmune disease. So of course, anti-inflammatory, that's going to be a thing for her forever and ever, amen. Right? That's the quality of what you should really be investing into yourself, is to ask why and to push.
And wouldn't it be tragic if she went under the radar for another 5 to 10 years? I see it constantly in my age group. So I treat a lot of women who are menopausal and beyond. And unfortunately, when your actual antibodies, the Hashimoto antibodies, are attacking your thyroid long enough, then we end up with the swelling of the joints and the edema in the body, where your body just can't cope. And we have all these strange symptoms coming up. So I just love the fact that you want to get to these tests as early as you can, get to the root cause, listen to the whispers so you don't have to have your body scream. That's a big saying that I like. We got to listen to the whispers. And that's why the sooner you get in to this functional testing, the faster you're going to feel fantastic. I would spend my last dollar figuring out a problem because, hey, once I got all the energy in the world, I can go earn that money back.
Yeah. And I think unless you've been in pain or suffering or been plagued with symptoms, when you are in that misery, it truly is a weight on your entirety of your life. Like, it's not just, oh, I get headaches all day. Oh, I have chronic pain. Oh, I have super painful periods. Like this is impacting people's lives where they're having to take 4 days off of work because their periods are so bad and so heavy. Or, they're dealing with chronic pain and they can't be playing with their kids. Or, even with their skin, they're so embarrassed by their skin that they don't want to leave the house. And if you are in these situations where it is impacting one, how you feel about yourself, it's impacting your day, it's impacting your life.
Yes.
These are things that need to be at the top of your priority list, because when that weight is removed from your shoulders, you're able to show up better in every facet of your life. Not only are you happier, but you'll be a happier partner or spouse, a happier parent, a happier sibling, caregiver. You'll show up better at work. You'll be able to go out into your world and live the life that you were meant to live without having this shadow on you all of the time. So I think, when we start to change that priority over, my health needs to be the very top priority, and I'll do whatever I can within my resources to fix it, because I know it'll improve every area of my life.
100%. Love it.
Mm-hmm. So, we've talked about the blood tests, and we know that we want to be making sure that we're getting the right blood tests done, but we're also looking, working with a practitioner that can be looking at those blood labs within the optimum range, because even if you go to your doctor, you're like, oh, you're at the very end of the range, but you're within range, so everything's normal. We actually need to be looking at a much narrower range. And even if you are within range of that narrow range, if you're at the end or the top or the tail of it, that's also some signs of, okay, well, maybe we should be looking at this. And then, moving away from the blood labs, sometimes they're just not comprehensive enough to be getting into the nitty-gritty of what we actually want to see. So this is where the things like a urine test, so that's why we love a Dutch test. I actually run a Dutch on myself every single year, because I think it can give you such valuable information looking at your hormones and the metabolites of your androgens, your cortisol, your estrogen, your progesterone, and even the different forms of your estrogen, right? Because when you're looking at a blood panel, you're not seeing your E1, your E2, your E3 all in that beautiful graph. So I think when we reach into, the more functional labs, you're able to get so much additional information aside from just the blood labs.
I can't believe how accurate urine is. Like there's a new urine analysis for inflammation called 11-dehydrothromboxane. I can't believe you can pee on a stick and find out someone's inflammation levels. Like, wow, why aren't we moving wholeheartedly to urine when we're seeing such great data? And it's painless. How many people are scared of needles? So I love that. We've got such great data. And also with the hair mineral analysis, the fact that you can just cough up a little bit of hair and find out, like, are you harboring heavy metals? Is that in the way? Your toxicity falls under an irritation. Because if you're taking on too much aluminum or lead or mercury, this can get in the way of your moods. This can get away, certainly impacting your ability. Like if you have too much cadmium, you can't grow good bacteria. How interesting that your metals can play such a huge role. So I love that you've got testing far beyond just sending people out to their doctor for blood labs. Because a lot of doctors are actually told by the higher ups, minimize blood work. So you ever tried to get labs out of your doctor and it's like pulling teeth? So that's why it's really great to say, okay, well, we don't have to go with blood anymore. We can do a much deeper dig in some of these other labs.
I just want to go with the cadmium for a second, because when we have cadmium, you cannot repopulate or grow your beneficial bacteria, which is very clever because cadmium is really high in glycophosphate and genetically modified organisms, which is your non-GMO, your non-organics, your typical conventional now. So what's this saying? I eat conventional everything. I am displacing those parking spots like you're referencing and giving it up to what? I'm giving it up to the pathogens. I'm giving it up to the opportunistic play, right? So one heavy metal is not just about a heavy metal. It's also about the trace source of where's it coming from? What are we doing? Smoking alone will change your gut health. Let's not even talk about the quality of anything else. It will absolutely change your gut health. And cadmium is notorious for altering zinc. Hello, skin. Mm-hmm. So just bringing it in for everybody.
I love that. Good job.
I know we could do the whole episode just on talking about the tests out there because they're so powerful. And before we move on to, the last topic I want to cover in your new version of Meals That Heal Inflammation, is the going back to the GI map, because this is probably one of my personal favorite tests to run along. Like, of course, we love the hair trace mineral, but one of the most popular upgrades our clients get in the Clear Skin solution is a GI map. Because when you can understand the species of bacteria, the yeast, the types of parasites, is there H. pylori, it gives you so much information about your body and the symptoms alongside it. And I actually ran a GI map on myself twice last year. I ran a GI map, as Chris knows. I went through a massive, gut microbiome rebalancing. I redid it, and it was so incredible to see the shifts in the different species. And if there were some lingering things that I worked on a little bit more, but I think it's so interesting that when you start learning that specific species of bacteria and yeast cause specific symptoms.
I love that. And I love the fact that when you finally know what's wrong, there's a eureka moment of like, oh, it's not my fault. There's something legitimately going on here. So people can start to take heart that they're empowering themselves, that an anti-inflammatory menu and taking on these lifestyle shifts will be worth it. Because if you're just shooting in the dark, you don't know if you're ever going to get there. But if you're like, okay, if I now know, oh my gosh, I have an H. pylori overgrowth. Okay, what do I do about that? And you put in all those amazing remedies that truly squash negative bacteria. We do see it. I mean, some people need to go the medical route, but there's so many positives we can do to regrow and rebalance. And I just love that you guys have that. Thank you for making that available to everybody. Everyone needs those functional tests. Yes.
I'm a big fan. So something I thought was a really great addition to your new book, which has been really, really popular on social media, is anti-nutrients.
Yes.
And I'm so glad that you brought this in because you're able to break it down and discuss it in a really easy to understand way.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So the first one that have people concerned, especially if they have thyroid issues, is goitrogens. So there's actual constituents within plants that have been shown to downregulate thyroid function. But the good news is with goitrogens, they're completely disabled by cooking. And that's why I created the book, The Hot Detox, is because when we warm up foods, when we stop eating our broccoli freezing cold, but we actually cook it down, we open up our ability to access the nutrition. We've noticed that warming food, actually, when we open up the cellulose, we can get to the nutrition inside it. We don't want to overcook it, but when we steam it down, you're going to get more of the good guys, like the sulforaphane, which is very hormonally balancing, but you're going to downregulate the goitogenic qualities. So we're not going to worry about goitrogens. We're going to really dive into some other ones. For example, lectins. Now, you may have heard Dr. Gundry, who talked about the dangers of lectins, but I just want to remind people that every single plant on the planet has lectins, so the protein of plants. So one of the high foods that he loves is avocados, but there's lectins in avocados. So with lectins, the good news is, again, cooking really helps. And you only want to pay attention to lectins if you're somebody who really has an inflammation spike by a specific one. And we can often narrow that in with a food journal to see what foods are personally triggering you. So we want to, especially with grains and beans, you want to pressure cook them because the lectins are completely shattered and therefore non-reactive. If you want to eat legumes, I'm like, you got to get on the Instapot because that's one way that you can afford them. Okay, so moving on to the one that's near and dear to my heart, only because in my arena of being an anti-inflammatory nutritionist, we deal mostly with people with severe back pain, joint pain. That arena, we actually may be looking at somebody who's oxalate sensitive, because it turns out the oxalates, which are these crystalline structures within certain plants, that can cause the oxalate crystals, which are sharp shards, can lodge in the kidneys, create kidney stones, can lodge in the joints and create joint pain, can lodge in the vulva and create vaginal pain, can lodge even in the skin and create eczema. So if somebody has uncurable eczema, like they've thrown everything at it and they still have this strange, like I had a client with like raccoon eczema, with just around the eye sockets, just uncurable eczema. When we actually encouraged him to try just a 2-week trial of a low oxalate menu, it went away completely, like 100% cure rate. And it never came back because he was so flipped out that he's never gone back to high oxalate foods. The only sad thing with high oxalate foods, they're really healthy. So you're not going to like this list. Like you're going to be like, Julie, that's not fair. These are our favorite superfoods. So forgive me because I've had other books like Slimming Meals That Heal where I am pumping out these superfoods saying, focus on these 25 foods. Like talk about eating humble pie. And this is the funny thing about being in practice. Since 1999, I'm going on 25 years in practice. You realize that there is not one food that's perfect for every single human, that you have to tailor it. So if someone is oxalate sensitive, if they have a family history of kidney stones, or they just are not able to get to the goods. So we go through all the common irritants, the ultra processed foods. Then we pull this list out when we just aren't getting results. And the big one is chocolate. Don't shoot the messenger, man. I never made this list up, okay? Because I'm sorry that chocolate is at the top of this list. But chocolate, spinach, which shocked me because I eat oshitashi, which is steamed spinach with sesame oil on it, which is a very popular Japanese dish. I was eating so much like concentrated spinach. 1 cup of spinach has 900 milligrams of oxalates. So spinach, we definitely want to look at chia seeds potentially. And I use now flax because flax is extremely low in oxalates. So I use arugula where I used to use the arugula where I used to use spinach. So I do have delicious substitutions. Like I use white chocolate where I used to use dark chocolate. So you can substitute things. But the other big ones that I want to mention is rhubarb is one of the world's highest sources. So please give that a miss. And beets are also really, really high. We can't really cook it out. But how do we get rid of oxalates? Well, the good news is that fermented foods claw onto oxalates and carry them out of your stools. So we really increase our probiotics and our probiotic-rich foods. And we also want to increase our citric acid. So making lots of sugar-free lemonade, which I just make up with monk fruit liquid or stevia. So a fresh squeezed lemon, a few drops of monk fruit or stevia in a nice glass of water, and drink that. Oh my gosh, so delicious and a great way to get rid of oxalates. So don't be scared, and certainly don't. I find so many people get into this space of like, there's nothing left to eat. I promise you there's amazing substitutions. So we can go enjoy like squash instead of having only root vegetables. We can go to the fruit. Did you know squash being a fruit is a great way for us to get the really similar flavor. It cooks into soups the same way. So there you go. I'm just going to step back because this conversation is the world's largest conversation. A whole bunch of people are like, no, but it is an important area that we covered in the book.
I'm glad that you covered it because, and I'm also glad that you said that there's the 8 billion diets for 8 billion people. Because I think a lot of people hear, they watch something on YouTube, they listen to a podcast, they come across a TikTok, and it's like, oh my gosh, kale has anti-nutrients. I can't eat kale. Oh my gosh, beets have anti-nutrients. And like every single food ends up having an anti-nutrient, and people get so overwhelmed and so confused, and they're listening to all of these different sources. But you have to realize that this is where that individualized approach needs to come in, that there is going to be a group of people that low oxalate style of eating is going to be fantastic. But there's another group of people, they don't need to do that. Maybe they do best on this type of eating. And I think that's really important, is always remember that it's going to be so unique to you.
Absolutely. The only thing that's universal is eating real food.
Yes.
Because ultra processed food was never meant to be consumed by the human. So therefore, we had 200,000 years of evolution, but we've only been eating ultra processed foods for really 75 years. So that's the only thing that's universal. Everything else is negotiable. And everybody else can say, okay, where do I fit in this paradigm? Keeping that food journal, accessing it back, and really feeling out what feels good in your system. What gives you life force? What brings you joy? Those are all things that we want to factor in.
Mm-hmm. And I know the oxalates is one that we've even looked at here in the Clear Skin solution. Because Chris, how many clients have we had to run a low oxalate protocol for?
I cannot probably give you a number. However, if somebody's had a past, if kidney stones, or if I see repetitive, I will likely go oxalates right away. If they have rheumatoid arthritis, so anything like joint inflammation, absolutely. Sometimes if they have neurodivergence, I'll go in there. It's codependent, like Julie said. It's really codependent on where you are right now, what's going on in the history, how long you've endured it, right? It's not really just isolated to that acne, because acne is a list of symptoms on its own. Anxiety is a list of symptoms on its own, right? So I say, okay, granted, you have a symptom of acne. Now we get to look at all the other symptoms that perpetuate it, right?
Yes.
Because we have to start and going, okay, we don't need that. And okay, we don't need that. And okay, we don't need, like when kids unwrap Christmas presents and the wrapping paper goes everywhere and there could be small injuries if you're too close, right? That's inflammation. I'm going to spare myself inflammation by not being around birthdays too close, these types of things. So at the end of the day, all I want everybody to know is, as you're hearing this, you're like, oh my gosh, I got to take it lectins and oxalates and stuff. I've done a low lectin and I felt fantastic. It's been one of the best. And I have Hashimoto's. It's been one of the best applications. However, I modified it. And I took out a little bit of some other things, a couple oxalates, right? Because those were triggers to me. When we get out of the I am starving, I am deprived, and we go, I feel starving, I feel deprived, then we get the whispers, so we don't get the screams, right? So if you don't want the acne, we have to start feeling to what's going on so that we can now delineate between what the needs are. So I like to work backwards.
Before we finish it up, I would love, Julie, what are like your one or two, your favorite things to recommend somebody that if they're just starting out, they don't know what to do in the whole world of inflammation? What's one or two things they can start doing?
Well, I'd love them to start putting in the foods that feel so good. And if there's one nutrient that I would love people to get more of, it is omega-3. So omega-3 fatty acids are incredible. And what's interesting is in our modern food, when we look and analyze people's menus, most people have 20 times the amount of omega-6 to omega-3. And that omega-6, unfortunately, could potentiate something called arachidonic acid, which is causing a cascade of inflammation, where omega-3 shuts down inflammation. So can you have more flax seeds? Can you have more algae-rich foods like seaweeds that are so delicious? Think sushi. I love having a hand roll, so we skip the white rice. And then can we really focus in on having lots of grass-fed meats, grass-fed eggs, and lots of good quality wild fish? Because these foods are going to be incredible for your skin. We know omega-3 helps to heal the skin, heal the gut lining. And what's interesting is within wild fish, there's also these peptides that help to heal the gut lining. We're now really studying that. We want to eat the whole fish or the whole caviar. So if there's one splash out, looking at salmon roe has tons of these special healing agents that are so specifically good for you that I would like to look to the Asians and the Japanese menu and say, what can we pluck from there to help you feel absolutely fantastic? So number one, we take the ultra processed foods out. Number two, we start to see where do we get the extra nutrition that's truly healing and reducing inflammation, because omega-3 works like a painkiller. It's so powerful to reduce inflammation that it's probably my number one.
Love it. All right. And we do have a little surprise here at the end. Julie's been so gracious about this next surprise. So Julie, I would love it if you could share what we're going to do.
We're going to give a book
See
away.
what I mean? Who's not excited?
I am so excited. I'm so excited to finally have this out because, guys, my book has been unavailable because they ran out of copies. So to put this beautiful book into a person's hands will make me so joyous. So yes, we're doing a book giveaway. So definitely check out the details, no doubt, in the show notes, and we will get one special viewer a beautiful new updated 432 page book.
Love it. So for all the details on the book giveaway of the brand new version of Meals That Heal Inflammation by the lovely Julie Daniluk, please check the show notes. And if you want to check Julie out, which I highly recommend you do, you can check her out pretty much across the internet, all at Julie Daniluk. You can check her out on Instagram at Julie Daniluk, juliedaniluk.com. So many different recipes. You type her name and she's going to pop up because she has been doing this for a while. So Julie, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you. I'd love to let people know, go to mealsthatheal.ca. Mealsthatheal.ca, you get 5 book bonuses when you buy the book. And they're such juicy bonuses that we couldn't fit in the book. So I made extra content just for you.
Glad you included that one. So I just typed it in, mealsthatheal.ca. That's in the show notes as well. As always, make sure to go and check that all out. Enjoy the rest of your day, everybody, and we will see you next week on another episode of the Clear Skin Chronicles.
Thanks for hanging out with us this week on the Clear Skin Chronicles. Remember to subscribe to the show and drop us a review. Sending glowing vibes your way, Katie and Chris.